Hello everyone! Another WrestleMania weekend is in the books. We had the follow-up Raw last night, and I have so much to talk about all the insanity that took place this weekend. But if you want to know my feelings on WrestleMania right off the bat before I go into greater detail, I will say that this show was well on its way to becoming like Triple H's magnum opus. Like one of the best shows in company history. They were well on their way to doing that. And then that ending happened, and it seemed to deflate the entire fan base. And then people they tuned into Raw the next night and saw the follow-up, and were even more upset. Like, people are ranting and raving online that this is the worst post-Mania Raw of all time. I don't know if it's that bad. It's one of the worst-rated shows on Cage Match, that site. Again, I don't know if I would go that badly with it, but considering how excited everybody was for WrestleMania, and how great WrestleMania was going, and then the main event happened, and the result happened, and everybody just walked away from that so disappointed and dejected, and now it's kind of like, all right, now what? And there's a lot of stuff going on, especially coming out of Monday Night Raw, which was a very sloppy show, sloppily put together show. And, all the talk that Vince McMahon is back in charge of creative and has a more active role following the sale of WWE to Endeavor, which is the parent company of UFC, which I don't mind. Of all the people that could have bought WWE, that one I'm just kind of like, oh, okay, I can live with them being in the same umbrella as UFC. That actually makes a little bit of sense. It's like, we'll sell fake fighting and real fighting. Cool. It's like, and just handle and promote both. You can almost handle and promote both kind of the same way, with small differences that you have to adhere to, obviously. But I'm just glad that the Saudis didn't get it, and I'm so glad that Disney didn't get it. The franchise ruiners. Disney took me, a lifelong Star Wars fan, and made me hate Star Wars. I am so glad they didn't get WWE, because God only knows what they would have done with it. It would have been terrible. They're ruining their own properties now. I heard they're doing a live-action remake of Moana, a movie that's not even 10 years old. It's like, okay, I can't tell if they're trolling us, if they think we're stupid enough to buy into that stuff still, or if they're just drowning and flailing and just trying to come up with something that they think people will want to go see. But in any case, I'm really glad that Disney didn't get it. So, okay, Endeavor getting WWE, I can live with that. And as long as they don't interfere too much and let us keep some of the things that we like, okay. But Vince, sporting a new mustache that makes him look like, I've heard all the comparisons. I've heard Walt Disney, I've heard Gomez Addams, I've heard Dick Dastardly seemed to be the one that everybody settled on. I've heard Spanish soap opera villain. I said he looked like Snidely Whiplash because I was a Rocky and Bullwinkle fan as a kid, so of course I referenced Dudley Do-Right and Snidely Whiplash. That mustache looks ridiculous, Vince. Lose it. But anyway, the creative format of Raw last night was a lot more indicative of Vince, because it was very haphazardly put together. And best example being the Seth Rollins segment, where he came out to the ring before commercial, he comes back and the show comes back from commercial, Seth's not there. And it's like, well, wait a minute, what happened? And then, of course, the footage leaks online where they canceled his segment and told Seth, and he got all ticked off, clearly. I'd be ticked off too, and they just basically canceled the segment. It's like, what the hell was the point of all that, And the formatting of the show, which is being labeled as the worst post-Mania of Raw of all time, I don't know if I'd go that far. I'd have to compare notes. I remember when I was a kid, like, the post-Mania shows were like recap shows, and that's all it was. It was recaps and interviews. This is what happened at WrestleMania. If you want to see it, buy the replay on pay-per-view, blah, 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 blah. And it was basically just a bunch of recaps and interviews of what happened. And this is before Raw. So, like, the post-Mania Raw thing really was more of a modern phenomenon. But I feel like a post-Mania Raw, it doesn't have to have great wrestling, but it should have some kind of, like, exciting storyline continuation to make us excited. It's like, okay, we did WrestleMania, that's the big season finale. What's the new thing that's going to happen? I think of when Brock Lesnar returned in 2012. That was a big deal. It was like, oh, crap. Lesnar's back. And that set up a really big match with Cena and Lesnar for some big matches down the road. So things like that. You expect some kind of exciting story and character direction. And this Raw Had a big angle at the end. I don't know if anybody was happy with it, but they had an angle. And some earmarks of like Vince booking, like again, haphazard booking, like Liv Morgan and what's her name, Raquel Rodriguez winning a tag title shot the night after they lost a 4-way match that was won by Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler. Makes absolutely no sense. It makes no sense. But it was, it's like, doesn't matter, pal, just do the new thing, and we'll put the stipulation on this one. It's stuff like that that's easily avoidable, but they do it anyway, and it's got that very much like, this is Vince's way, and his take on things. And, it sounds like some people within the company are losing their minds. Bayley's already requested her release, apparently. That broke right before I started filming. Holy shit. It's just, it's kind of crazy right now. And again, with the whole Endeavor sale, a lot of things are up in the air. A lot of balls are up in the air. And any AEW guys that were maybe considering going back to WWE may be rethinking that, considering how Cody was treated the last 2 nights. But again, I will go into all of that when I go into detail about WrestleMania. As far as WrestleMania shows that happened this weekend, I only watched the 2 WrestleManias and Ring of Honor Supercard of Honor, which I watched on Monday. I did not watch NXT Stand and Deliver because I really don't care about NXT. My, how times change. Because there was a time where I would have gladly watched the NXT show over WrestleMania, and that's flipped. Especially this year. I couldn't even tell you what was on the card for Stand and Deliver, which is kind of sad. I know they did a multi-woman ladder match, because I saw clips of a nasty fall that happened, but other than that, I couldn't tell you anything that happened on that show, nor do I care, to be perfectly honest. I have enough wrestling in my life, I don't need NXT. But those are the shows I watched, and I'm going to go over WrestleMania, the 2-night event, and give my own personal thoughts on it. And, like I said, I mean, this show was, honest to God, top to bottom, both nights, mostly incredible. There were a few hiccups along the way. I won't say that there wasn't, but there was one match in particular I thought was overrated, and a couple other missteps along the way. But generally speaking, there were 6 or 7 matches coming out of these 2 shows that I adored. And how often can you say that about a modern WrestleMania, where it's like, man, there was a lot of very enjoyable material on the show. And I think it's the best WrestleMania of the 2-night format, easily. And, I would prefer it if they just did 1 4-hour show. And, if that means some matches have to be shorter, then so be it. I'm actually okay with that. But if you're going to do the 2-night format, this is the best way to do it, because they did a really good job all around. Again, I do have my criticisms, and I have a lot to say about the main event, but generally speaking, I was very pleased with how WrestleMania turned out up until the last 5 minutes. And it's like, what did they do? And then I saw what they did on Raw the last night, and I'm like, SpaghettiOs. We might be in trouble, but let me start off with the show. I have the cards pulled up here. We opened up night 1 with Miz and Snoop Dogg running down the card, which was completely pointless. I thought most of their segments throughout both nights were completely pointless. Didn't need to be there, but I'll talk more about Miz and Snoop when I get into night 2. But match-wise, we opened up with Austin Theory defending the United States Championship against John Cena. When you don't see John Cena for a while, and this is me talking, not the general public, the general masses, the wrestling fan base, the general consumers, casual fans, whatever, they might have a very different opinion of John than I have, but I remember hating John Cena for years and years and years and years, and when he came out again, even with the Make-A-Wish kids, even with them standing on the stage with him, I just looked at him and go, I hate you so much. All those old feelings just came rushing back. And it didn't help that he had G.I. Joe knockoff gear. G.I. Joe, a big staple of my childhood. And I'm sitting there the only wrestler who's allowed to wear G.I. Joe shit is Sergeant Slaughter. How dare you? How dare you, Cena? And I'm just sitting there I hate you. I hate you so much. Welcome back, John. I miss this. I miss this. I miss crapping on him. Made my channel a lot more boring when I didn't have Cena to rage about. So, anyway, they do this match, and Austin Theory wins to the surprise of absolutely no one. We all figured that he was going to win this. The match itself was very typical paint-by-numbers Cena match, except he lost. And that's pretty much all this was. I wasn't offended by it. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't good either. It was just something that happened, and Austin Theory got a win, which theoretically should be like a huge, oh my god, he beat John Cena. But I think a victory over John Cena doesn't mean as much as it used to. It kind of reminds me of when Rico, Gold Star, if you remember who that is, when he beat Ric Flair on Raw, and at the time it just didn't feel like a big deal. It's like, oh yeah, everybody beats Flair, who cares? And that's kind of how this feels. It's like, well, yeah, Austin Theory should be going over Cena, because who cares? You know, it's Cena, like, whatever. Besides the tag match in December, when was the last time John Cena won a match? I can't recall, like, the last time I actually saw Cena win a match. It might be going as far back to his feud with AJ. Like, when he beat AJ, finally, at the end of their feud. That might be the last time I saw Cena actually win a match. Again, not counting the tag match in December. So the win over Cena doesn't mean as much as it used to. It's not like he's beating a prime, always winning John Cena. He's beating a guy that's kind of been a glorified jobber for the last few years now. So it's like, Austin Theory, whatever. And I'm still not completely sold on Austin Theory. What happened the next night on Raw didn't make it any better, as even though he beat Rey Mysterio, he was still kind of in the background to the larger Bad Bunny, Dominic Mysterio, Damian Priest situation, which was the best part of the entire show last night. But yeah, I don't see it in Austin Theory. I just don't. And a win over Cena should feel like a bigger deal than this. And I think over time that's become devalued. It's not like when, to use another example, and by the way, a lot of these matches I'm going to be making comparisons to past WrestleManias and past matches, so bear with me. But when Undertaker beat Hogan in '91, and I watched that as a kid, that felt like a huge deal. Even the segment at the funeral parlor where he beat up Hogan and Savage and Piper came out to try and save Hogan, and Undertaker scared them off. I'm like, oh my god, even Savage and Piper are scared of this guy. That all felt like a big deal. This felt more like when Undertaker beat Jimmy Snuka. It's like, yeah, Snuka at one time, big draw, big star. Just 7 years prior to that, he was a big deal and a big name. Now it's like, Taker should be beating him, right? And that's kind of how I feel whenever John Cena's involved. Like, yeah, what happened in that match is exactly what should be happening with Cena at this point. And I thought the tag match in December, which I've referenced a few times, was a brilliant way to use him, because they used him as like a way to get additional eyeballs on this larger storyline. He didn't do much in the match. He didn't have to. His name was attached to it, and that was enough to get people to watch it. And then people didn't get a whole lot of Cena, but they saw this larger storyline involving Roman and Sami and Kevin Owens, and all that worked. So I thought using him in a situation like that was much better than this, where it's like, yeah, he put over the young guy, but who really cares? So that was your opener to night one. I'm assuming they opened up because Cena wanted to beat the traffic out of there, but that's just me. That's my guess. Next up, we got the four-way tag, Street Profits winning over Braun Strowman and Ricochet, the Alpha Academy, and the Viking Raiders. This was fun. I enjoyed this. These pinball, spot monkey, multi-person matches, I think have become old hat in modern wrestling. I think they're some of the most mind-numbingly awful matches in pro wrestling, because it's just spot on top of spot on top of spot on top of spot. But this one, thank God it wasn't a ladder match. I have more to say about the ladder match when I talk about Supercard of Honor, but thank God it wasn't a ladder match. And they just let the tag teams go out there and, do a couple of cool things, like that rolling German that Chad Gable did on Braun was insane. Ricochet breaking out the shooting star press, that was insane. And they kept it fairly simple, and Street Profits just won. And it's like, okay, you know what, I can live with that. It's one of those matches I'm not going to remember in 2 weeks, but it's also, thank God it's not one of those matches with ladders involved and people jumping off 20-foot ladders, something that I've become completely numb to, which is a problem. So if you want to do more matches like this, I'd be more accepting of the multi-person Spotfest pinball matches. But then we go into the first real gem of the show, Seth freaking Rollins going up against Logan Paul. Both entrances were weird. I thought Logan Paul's was kind of like a less cool version of Shawn Michaels. Although I'm shocked he was able to do it. Although I guess if anybody's going to get away with wearing a harness after the Owen Hart situation, it's going to be Logan Paul, because he's a celebrity guest and WWE kisses his butt a little bit. But And Seth's outfit was a little weird. That bright pink he was wearing like hurt my eyes. But I mean, Brett would offset it by wearing some black in there with it. Make it a little less, a little less of an eyesore. But I thought this match was great. I thought this was an excellent match. And the shocking thing to me is that this might be Logan Paul's weakest match. When you look at all the other ones he's had, like the match with Miz and the match with Roman Reigns and the performance at the Royal Rumble, I'm like, God, this might be his weakest one. And that's crazy that he's as good at this as he is. And, aside from like the amazing stunts that he does in the ring and how great of an athlete he is, his facial expressions are better than 90%, 95% of the talents out there today. Like, people could watch videotape of him and learn how to do things properly through watching Logan Paul. He is kind of a natural at this, and it's kind of insane. And the fact that he's such a hateable douchebag makes it even better, because I just naturally hate the guy. Like, I never liked Logan Paul, so that only fuels the fire and makes him an even better wrestling character, because he is so naturally hateable. So I thought this match worked great. I've already forgotten his name. The guy that took the mask off on the energy drink thing, KSI or KDI or something like that, the rapper guy. I didn't know who that was. Apparently he's a YouTube rapper, and I was like, oh God, I'm getting old. I don't even recognize the YouTube celebrities anymore. I'm thinking like, God, where's Jenna Marbles? What is she doing now? It's like, you got the Smosh guys? What are they up to? Got Nostalgia Critic back there? Angry Video Game Nerd? Is he doing anything? I'm old. I'm like, even by YouTube standards, I'm old, and it makes me sad. But I thought this match was very, very enjoyable, and the right guy won. Seth winning with the curb stomp after a very exciting contest. One of the better matches of the weekend, which says a lot, because there were a lot of really good matches this weekend. But the next one was not one of them. We had Trish Stratus, looking great, by the way, in a redo of her outfit from WrestleMania 21. Looked very nice. Lita and Becky Lynch versus Damage Control. Bayley, Dakota Kai, and Io Sky. And Bayley, who we may never see again. Well, not never, but she's asked for her release, so this might be the end of Damage Control, which makes sense because they've been a jobber group pretty much ever since they debuted. Any case, I thought Trish looked great, both... visually, she looked great, and it looked like she hasn't aged in 20 years. I made a comment on Twitter that 20 years ago, she was in a really good match with Victoria and Jazz at WrestleMania 19, where she won the women's title. And I'm like, she looks almost exactly the same as she did then. Like, she's barely aged. It's crazy. And when it came to the in-ring stuff, she hit all her spots well, and she was the best part of the match. And by the time it was over, I was kind of like, can we just get Trish and Io Sky one-on-one? I think I would have preferred that, because I thought this match with so many bodies flying around and so many clunky moments. Lita does not look good in there at all. Very sluggish. She looks like she can barely hit the ropes anymore, and they used her as the face in trouble to set up the hot tag, which I think was a mistake. That role probably should have gone to Becky, who I forgot was out there half the time. And Bayley, I forgot she was out there most of the time. It was just kind of a messy match that didn't do a lot to highlight the talents involved, except for Trish. Trish was the only one that came out of that looking good. But yeah, I thought the match was kind of a mess, unfortunately. The faces won to the surprise of absolutely no one, and the situation is what it is. So that is that. So then we move on to one of the matches I was looking forward to the most, Rey Mysterio versus his son, Dominic Mysterio. Dominic wins for entrance of the weekend. That looked very cool. The prison police escort looked great. It reminded me of Kane from 2004, and Dominic has really won me over with his current presentation. Such a hateable heel, and this match was exactly what I wanted it to be, with Rey getting revenge on his punk son. Like, the whole spot where he took his belt and whipped him and gave him a spanking, gave him a trip to the woodshed, whipped him like a government mule, like that whole segment, and it's like, and the fans reacted so strongly to that, and I'm like, that's wrestling. That's wrestling. You set up, pay off, and we're all happy. If only the main event could have gone as well. But I thought this match was very, very enjoyable. I think I would have enjoyed it more if maybe they had played with Rey being a little bit more reluctant to fight Dominic, and then kind of getting angrier and angrier as the match progresses. They didn't do that as much, but overall, like, I thought the match was highly, highly enjoyable. Actually, in the early going, I was reminded of Bret Hart and Owen Hart from WrestleMania 10, where Dominic would get some kind of a small victory over Rey, and then he would like overindulge in like cheering himself and being like, yeah, I'm great. And then Rey would put him on his ass and teach him a lesson or two, and kind of like what Brett did to Owen at 10, and I was like, this is good stuff. I like it. So yeah, Ray won. This was his big weekend, considering he was inducted into the Hall of Fame, a ceremony that I did not watch, unfortunately. Ran out of time this weekend, but congratulations to Ray, because he got his Hall of Fame induction, and he had a heck of a match with his son Dominic on the grand stage. I thought all of that came off really well. So, good stuff there. Then we get the match that a lot of people said was the match of the night for night one. Rhea Ripley defeating Charlotte Flair to become the SmackDown Women's Champion. And really, that was match of the night? It wasn't Seth and Logan. It wasn't Ray and Dom. It wasn't the actual closer. It was this one? Really? I don't know, like the first 2/3 of this match, I was like fighting to stay awake, and I thought it was kind of dull, and the crowd was kind of dead for it, and I was not feeling. Now, it came alive in the closing minutes. It kind of reminded me of Rock and Cena at 29, where like the first half of that match, no one cared at all, and then in the last minutes, when the finisher fest got so insane that it was like the crowd came back alive for it. But which I guess is better to end strong than start off strong and then fizzle out. So. If you're only going to do it one way, do it the way Rhea and Charlotte did, I guess. But, I mean, there was some cool stuff in there for a highlight standpoint, like that gnarly-looking German suplex, the flipping one, and the riptide off the top for the win was a good finish. But I was just thoroughly uninterested in this match, and the idea that people are arguing that this should have closed over the tag match, to me, is insane. Absolutely insane. And I think if this match had closed, it would have bombed. That's just my opinion, because especially after the tag match, which I'll get into, but I don't know. I think that I think that this I don't know. I thought the match was only okay, and people were praising it like it was one of the better matches of the weekend, possibly the best match of the weekend. And I there were at least 6 or 7 matches I would put in front of it. I didn't get it. I liked the women's match at night 2 more, and I liked the women's match at the Ring of Honor show more, to be perfectly honest. It wasn't even the best women's match of the weekend, but in any case, and the reason I feel that way, it has nothing to do with like the physical nature, it has nothing to do with Rhea. Like, she wasn't the problem. The problem's Charlotte Flair, who I don't think is a bad worker. I'm not saying that I was singing Charlotte's praises way back in the NXT days. I think she's a very talented athlete and a very talented worker. The problem is casting her as a babyface is a terrible idea, because she is thoroughly unlikable on screen. And I'm sure behind the scenes she's probably a very nice person, and there's not a problem there, but on screen, the way she carries herself and speaks and presents herself, she comes across as a very smug, unlikable person, and to me, casting her as a babyface just does not work. And it throws the whole match off. And it showed where it's like, they just kind of picked Rhea as the babyface anyway, so screw it, And they booed Charlotte and cheered Rhea, and that's kind of what happened. And I expected that to happen, because, like, who the hell is going to cheer for Charlotte Flair? She's awful. She is so unlikable. But I know Rhea Ripley looks like a Tim Burton character on steroids, but, I mean, that's more cuddly and friendly and likable than Miss Smugpants over there, Charlotte Flair. So hopefully, it's like, we'll do this match, and then Charlotte Flair will never be a babyface ever again, because that is bad casting. She should never be a babyface. She's tailor-made to be a heel. And that's my take on the whole situation, and I'm sticking to it. So, from there we moved on to the filler fluff right before the closer, with Pat McAfee defeating The Miz in an impromptu match. Whatever. That's my take, whatever. I think it's hilarious that Miz, a former WWE champion and WrestleMania main eventer, is just the clown that gets wailed on all the time now. And it's like, man, that's kind of a weird spot to be in, but whatever. Again, this was just fluff before the main event, so I didn't put too much thought into it. Then we got the actual main event of night 1. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn defeating the Usos, dethroning the Usos in their record-breaking Tag Team Championship reign to become the undisputed WWE Tag Team Champions. This was stellar. I loved it. Now, it's funny, I'm looking at the match times here, and according to the Wikipedia, this match was almost a minute longer than Rhea and Charlotte. I felt every bit of the length of Rhea and Charlotte. I did not feel the length of this match. This one flew by because I was so enthralled and so invested in the story that the ultimate payoff of KO and Sami winning the tag titles was amazing. And there were a few times where I thought they were going to pull the rug out from under us, but KO and Sami pulled through with 3 haluva kicks to Jey Uso to get the win in amazing story-ending fashion, and what a way to close night one of WrestleMania. I was ecstatic. I couldn't go to sleep because I was so like, oh my god, that match was incredible. That was awesome, awesome, awesome. Night one of WrestleMania was fan-freaking-tastic, and it was like, man, I can't wait for night two to see what they do. Oh boy. Oh boy. Okay, so we go into night two. We open up with Brock Lesnar versus Omos, a match that I did not hate. It was basic as shit, pretty much what I expected it to be. Maybe a little longer than I expected it to be because they gave Omos a little bit more than I thought they would. It was inoffensive, it was quick, it was easy, and I think Lesnar wanted to beat the traffic out of there, so that's why they went on first. I think another match should have gone on first, but I'll get to that in a little bit. Lesnar hit the F5, which was impressive. The match, nothing negative about it. My only real negative against it is that I don't think they should have done this match at WrestleMania. I think it should have been Lesnar and Lashley. That poor guy got screwed. Poor Lashley got boned this year. Royally, royally boned. I'm convinced they let him win the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal on SmackDown as like an apology because he was looking like he was going to work with Brock. Then they had him up with Bray in a terrible feud that no one cared about. And then Bray got dropped, and then it just kind of left him out on an island. Well, what's Lashley doing? Apparently nothing. So some people said they should have just done an impromptu match with him destroying LA Knight. I think that would have been fine for him. If you've got nothing else, they could have done that. Maybe he could have been the one to go out there against Miz later in the show. I'm sure he wouldn't have injured himself. More on that in a bit. Another thing I'll say about night two, they did a lot of formatting things that were almost identical to night one. Like Miz and Snoop opened up the show and ran down the card again, and they did another Snoop, has an opponent set up for Miz, and they do an impromptu match. They did that again. They did the up, down, down, trial match, computer match thing both nights when they didn't really need to. And there was a lot of repetition in night two, and it's like I would have liked to okay, you did the up, down, down thing in night one. Maybe do something different in night two. Come up with something different. Be more creative. But whatever. That's minor knock in the grand scheme of things. Then we got the women's four-way tag team match. Ronda and Shayna defeating Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. Natalya and Shotzi and Chelsea Green and Sonya Deville. This match happened and it was over before I even realized that it started. I actually didn't see this match initially on the initial viewing because I had to go walk my dog. I was told I didn't miss much. When I went back and watched it, I realized, wow, I really didn't miss much. It was a match. It happened. Ronda won. Bibbidi-bobbidi-boo, whatever. I didn't hate it. Didn't love it. It was complete white noise. To me. Then they did Bobby Lashley presenting the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal Trophy. I felt sorry for him because he deserved a better spot on the card instead of being left off the card entirely. That poor fool. That poor man. He's one of the coolest guys in WWE. It's just being this big, buffy, bruiser type guy that could beat the shit out of just about anybody. And the fact that they had nothing for him at WrestleMania is just insulting. But in any case, we then got one of my absolute favorite matches of the weekend. Gunther successfully defending the Intercontinental title against Sheamus and Drew McIntyre in an absolute stiff fest that completely surpassed my expectations. I had high expectations for this. I just want those three to go out there and just stiff the fuck out of each other. It'll be so cool. You look at when I first started watching Wrestle Kingdom every year, the match that made me fall in love with Wrestle Kingdom was the Makabe Ishii match from Wrestle Kingdom 9 for the Never Openweight title. And it's like, can we get more matches like that? Can we get more matches like this? And I don't think this style of hard-hitting, I guess we'll call it almost like a Japanese style match. I don't think we've ever had anything like that at WrestleMania before. So to see all three of those guys just really lay into each other with stiff shot after stiff shot and beat the crap out of each other, it made it for a very exciting match. I think was better than Sheamus and Gunther at Clash of the Castle, which is amazing because normally I prefer the one-on-one, but this one surpassed that. I think the larger venue of WrestleMania definitely helped. This match was cool, and it was also great to see the Intercontinental title in a premier spot again. When was the last time the IC title got a meaningful spot at WrestleMania? You have to go way back, way back. God, WrestleMania 10? I'm talking that far back, where the Intercontinental title was in one of the more important matches on the show. It's been a long time. There was that one a few years ago where it was opened up by, I think it was Finn, Seth, and Miz, and they had like a good athletic match where it's like, yeah, you know, it's fun, but there was nothing really substantial about it. But this one, Gunther's longest IC title reign of the 21st century going on. Two guys that have been targeting him for months, former friends. They come to blows over wanting to face Gunther for the IC title, and you get this awesome triple threat. Story pays off. Gunther retains, and his record-setting reign gets to continue, and hopefully he is the one to beat Honky Tonk Man's record. So this match was great. It was probably my favorite match of night 2. We'll get to the main event and see how I feel about that, but next up we got the match that I felt sorry for. It's like, I feel sorry for whatever match has to follow that IC title match. Then I see Bianca and Asuka come out, and I'm like, oh no, poor girls. And that match was for the Raw Women's Championship, and it was pretty good, despite the fact that they had to follow a red-hot IC title match. This match was pretty good, and these two had a lot going against them because they didn't have significant promotion, they didn't have a great storyline, they didn't have much of anything. And they went out there and had a pretty good athletic match. I actually would have preferred this as the opener, because I think this would have been a really good, hot, athletic opener to open up with. You know, they had so much going against them, and yet they still delivered a pretty solid match. On most other cards, this would be like the second, maybe even best match on the show. And on this weekend, it was like 5th or 6th. But I liked it better than Rhea and Charlotte. Sorry. Good match. Bianca's reign continues, and it's like, man, they deserve more. They deserve more promotion. They deserved a better story, and they just didn't get it for whatever reason. It was just, they got weekly reminders that the match was happening, and that was it. And I feel like they deserve more. And also, Bianca's entrance was pretty cool, I thought, with the dancers. And I think that was her daughter with her. I could be wrong. I didn't get confirmation on that. But all that was pretty cool. And they set up Rhea versus Bianca for both belts the next night on Raw. I am fully in favor of unifying those belts. You should unify those belts, because one of the problems that plagued WWE for years is that splitting the championships between Raw and SmackDown. It's like, there's too many belts, it's too confusing, and the role of champion doesn't mean as much as it should. I think Roman Reigns has proved carrying both world titles and having one world champion has made the show so much better. I think the Usos carrying both sets of tag titles and having one tag team champion, one pair holding the tag team championships, I think it made the tag division so much better. I think they can do something similar with the women, maybe put both belts on Rhea or Bianca, either way. I could go either way. I think that would be great for the women's division, because you have like a clear-cut number one and a top prize for them to fight for, instead of like splitting and dividing everything and making everything mean less. I heard talk that they should do a women's Intercontinental Championship, and I was like, no! Too many belts. You've got too many belts. Stop it. Stop it, stop it. So yeah, unify those belts, and I think it would be better. I think in the long run, it'll actually be much better for storylines and better for the meaning behind being a women's champion. It'll mean a lot more if there's less opportunities to get the belt. And I know that might sound disappointing to some people, but trust me, it works with Roman, it worked with the Usos. Like, apply some of that same logic to the women's division, we'll be better off. Then we had the Fiasco with Shane McMahon coming out for an impromptu match with Miz, and he blew his knee out on a leapfrog, which I don't think I've ever seen that before. But, you know, I wish him all the best, and I hope he's okay. But that was a bad idea. That was a really bad idea. And, God, Shane sounded really bad, too. Did anybody else notice that? He sounded like he'd been running around and smoking all day. Like, he just didn't say... He sounded exhausted before he even went out there. And... when his leg went out from under him, Snoop basically improvised and did like a crappy people's elbow spot on The Miz to get the win and kind of take attention off of Shane having to be carried out of the ring. And it was, props to him for improvising, but it didn't work and it wasn't very good. This was easily the worst part of both shows. And it was, oh God, that was a bad idea. And I look at situations like this and I'm like, and Bobby Lashley couldn't have a match? Really? You made room for this, but Bobby Lashley, you couldn't make room for him? Okay. That was a choice. That was a choice. Then we got the Hell in a Cell match. Edge versus the Demon Finn Balor. I get what they were trying to recreate the Brood entrance with Edge. I wish they'd use the original music, maybe give a special appearance to Gangrel to really sell that. The disco ball mask did not work. I was getting Shockmaster vibes looking at that thing. The Demon entrance didn't look as cool because the stadium, it was still light out, so it didn't look as cool, but it was still cool to see the Demon. And, oh God, what to say about the match? I think they made it work for most of it. I mean, doing the coup de grace off the kind of the wall of the cell looked really cool, and they did a couple of cool things to make the match overall, like, they avoided a fiasco, but there were a couple of roadblocks in the way. One, the painted weapons, which I didn't like. It looked cartoony, and it just kind of reminded me of, like, early 90s WCW or certain eras of TNA. Like, I've talked about the Luck of the Irish match before on this channel, and that's exactly what I thought of when I saw those purple kendo sticks and red steel chairs. I'm like, oh, come on, that's just silly. It just looks silly. I'm glad the Hell in a Cell is silver again. That looks great. That red cell was just an eyesore, so I'm glad they're back to that. Edge got the win. They were trying to do something where it looked like Edge was referencing his entire past from the Brood and doing the kill switch, stealing Christian's finisher, and I wondered if they were going to do a bunch of stuff. Like, I joked on Twitter, it's like, oh, is he going to do the Hogan leg drop or the RKO or the 619 or things like that? But I don't know if what happened mid-match kind of threw that story out of whack. I'm not sure. And what happened was Edge hit Finn with the ladder, and Finn got busted open. And they immediately stopped the match to go check on Finn and stitch him up, which I thought was ridiculous. And to me, it's like, okay, I know they don't want to do blood anymore, which to me, if you don't want to do blood, you shouldn't do Hell in a Cell. That's an opinion I've had ever since they went PG. Those type of matches need color, and you can't, like, sell me on the most violent match ever without the risk of there being color. That to me is just ridiculous. But, so Finn bled, but he looked okay. Like, it didn't look like, if he legitimately couldn't continue, that's one thing, but Finn looked like he could have continued. And but no, they had to stop the match, stitch him up, and then send him out there, and that really kind of threw the match out of whack. And a lot of the tendencies of modern WWE got in the way of what could have probably been a much better match, but instead it was just kind of like, it was fine overall. Like I said, I feel like they avoided a fiasco, but it still was, like, not as good as it could or should have been, unfortunately. And Edge, once again, kind of gets the short end of the stick at WrestleMania, unfortunately. He's got, ever since he came back, he's been kind of a hard luck case at WrestleMania, and I kind of feel bad for him. But this match was not as good as it could have been. But it was also here that we got the Hall of Fame segment, which, of course, very cool to see. The Hall of Fame is one of my favorite things that they do every year, and I always mark out for it. But that leads us into the match, the main event. Roman Reigns defending the undisputed WWE Universal Championship against the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes. Now, this match was amazing. Like, the crowd was hyped for it. Excellent. They had excellent pacing, excellent work. The big spots mattered, and Solo Sikoa got kicked out. The Usos tried to interfere, and KO and Sami eliminated them, and after all that went down, I was like, oh my god, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Because now all the, we joked with Cena for years, overcoming the odds. It looked like Cena, like all the roadblocks that kept the titles on Roman, whether it be Sami, the Usos, Solo Sikoa, whatever, all those roadblocks seemed to be eliminated, and I was like, oh my god, it's going to happen. It's going to freaking happen. The story will be finished, and oh my god, this is going to be great. And I was all excited. And then all of a sudden, Solo Sikoa comes out in a hoodie out of nowhere, delivers the Samoan spike, sets Cody up for a spear, 1, 2, 3. And you could almost feel the energy of the crowd, like, completely losing it. Like, all that, and that's how it ends? Are you kidding? That amazing match? Like, and let me just say, like, it was nice to get a very good WrestleMania main event again. It's been a while since we've had, like, a really good, amazing one, because, I mean, let's look at the 30s. Like, Daniel Bryan winning the title at 30, that triple threat was great. And then you had the next year's 31, which, not one of my favorites necessarily, but the way they booked it, they kind of avoided a fiasco by having Lesnar destroy Reigns and then doing this shot cash-in with Seth. Okay, all that worked. Then you get 32, Triple H and Roman, disaster. 33, Roman and Taker, disaster. 34, Brock and Roman again, disaster. Then you got the women's triple threat at 35. Not as good as it could have been, kind of flat, and of course they had to come at the end of an ungodly long show, and the crowd just, I was exhausted, everybody was exhausted, so they were put in a bad spot, and the balloon finish didn't help. 36, COVID era, Drew and Lesnar was more sad than anything else. 37, you got the triple threat, Roman, Edge, and Daniel Bryan, which was good. It was nothing special, but it did help towards establishing Roman as the dominant force that he is now. So, okay, the match worked, but it wasn't one of Mania's best or anything like that. And 38, we got Roman and Lesnar again, which was okay, nothing special. So it's been the closing matches at WrestleMania the last few years. And when I say closing matches, I'm not counting closing of night one. I mean the ultimate main event. That's the ultimate main event of both nights. Typically one of the weaker parts of the show, and that's how it has been. This match was not that. This match was amazing. It was great to feel that again. The closer of WrestleMania feels like a satisfying story coming to a satisfying conclusion, and we're going to get that big crowning moment at the end. And then they pulled the rug out from under us right at the tail end. I think part of my problem is that all they did was they had Solo Sikoa go in there and just cheat, and that was it. And to me, once the referee ejected Solo, like that should have been the last time we saw him. And by the way, the referee ejection is becoming an overused spot. And now we know it means nothing because he just came back out anyway. But I would have, if you're going to have Roman retain, which I knew was a possibility because of the 1,000 days thing. It's like, how many more chances are you going to have to get a champion to 1,000 days? I don't know. So I knew that was a possibility, but I would have tried to come up with something different or exciting to where, yes, people are going to be disappointed that Cody lost, but at least come up with some major, like, holy God, what just happened? Like, maybe do the Lesnar thing at Mania. Maybe, but oh, wait, Lesnar had to leave to beat the traffic. Yeah, so that was going to work. Maybe debut a new member of the Bloodline. Something. Anything than just having Solo, because it felt uncreative, because everything was just building and building and building, and then having Solo go out there and do it felt like a regression back to where we were 10 minutes ago, and it was like, well, then why didn't they just they should have just ended the match 10 minutes ago, whatever, but, yeah, very disappointing, and then it's like, but initially I was like, okay, I knew Roman retaining was a possibility, and I also knew that, there was going to be some kind of a follow-up on Raw. So I was like, let's see how they followed it up on Raw. And they followed it up on Raw by having Lesnar pretend to be Cody's tag partner for a match and then beat the ever-living crap out of him to close the show. And it's like, after this weekend, or these two shows, it feels like Cody's been pummeled and beaten down, and I have to wonder, like, are they going to be able to get Cody as hot as he was heading into WrestleMania? And that's if the answer is yes, it's very hard. It's going to be very, very hard to accomplish that because everyone was just primed and ready for him to win the belt here, and they didn't do it. And I don't know if people are going to trust it if you do it at SummerSlam. That's the problem, where it's like, oh, no, you already got me once. I'm not falling for it again. And there are, I don't know. And they could still do a Cody heel turn, I guess. That would be the direct. At this point, that's the direction I would probably go, and just turn him heel and let him win the title that way. And be the new mega heel, or, you know, I saw comparisons to, like, Bobby Roode in TNA, like when he lost his championship opportunity at Bound for Glory, and then a couple weeks later he turned heel on James Storm when James Storm kind of snuck in from underneath and stole the title. So, I don't know. I'm not saying they should do that exactly, but as a babyface, I don't know if Cody's going to work moving forward as a top guy, because it feels like they just squandered their opportunity. So, I don't know. And again, like this WrestleMania, I'm looking up and down this card. I mean, night one was obviously much better than night two, but you had Rollins versus Logan Paul, awesome. You had Ray versus Dominic, very, very fun. You had the tag title match, which was amazing. You had the IC title match, which was great. You had Bianca versus Asuka, which was very good. And you had Roman versus Cody, which was on its way to being like the best WrestleMania main event in years. I mean, that's a pretty good run of matches to have over the course of a weekend. And this was looking like, I was saying it at the time, it's like this is like the best WrestleMania in 20 years. And then they kind of dropped the ball. And all the news of Vince McMahon taking over creative again. A lot of people lost faith in the WWE after last night's Raw, and it's just amazing to me how everything could go so south so fast, because everyone was so happy after night one, and everybody was so excited during the main event to night two. It's like, man, they're this close. They're this close to just having like this amazing, not perfect show, but like very, very exciting show that people are going to talk about for a long time for the right reasons. And then they just didn't pull the trigger at the end, and it's like, it almost feels like God, I mean, I want to say Starrcade 97, but Starrcade, at least, they screwed it up, but at least Sting walked out with the belt, you know? At least he walked out with the belt that night. At least they got that part of it right. You know, the whole, the execution was crap, but, you know, whatever. Because I'm trying to think, like, God, what would happen if, like, Steve Austin didn't win the belt at WrestleMania 14? Like, would you have been able to repair him and get the belt on him at SummerSlam? I don't know. Like, it's one of those weird things to think about. It's like, should you strike the iron when it's as red hot as this? And I don't know if Cody can get that red hot again after this. I don't know. It just feels like a huge ball was dropped right at the finish line, right at the tail end of an amazing weekend of shows. And then the follow-up of Raw kind of destroyed people's hopes, unfortunately, because now it's going to be Brock and Cody, which is a great match to do, but it feels like they're getting Cody out of the world title picture and just moving on to other things. And there was that clip that's going around from Raw where you could hear that one guy in the audience go, "Triple H never forgets," which is pretty funny, but yeah, it was like, man, it's such a great weekend of shows too, and it's so unfortunate, but it is what it is. So that concludes my talk about WrestleMania, and that is all I have now regarding WrestleMania and WWE. I'm sure more developments will come out over the weeks and months as things continue to change under the Endeavor banner. We'll see how all of that goes, and with Vince back in the picture, we'll see how all of that goes, but yeah, it's a little disheartening to see how everything's gone so far, but we shall see. So I do want to talk briefly about Supercard of Honor, the other show I watched this weekend. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I do want to talk about it a little bit because this was kind of a cold show for me. I didn't watch any of the new Ring of Honor shows because I'm not paying $10 a month to watch Ring of Honor. That's not going to be a thing that happens. But I did watch this pay-per-view just out of morbid curiosity. I wanted to watch something besides WWE. WrestleMania weekend per tradition, and this was the show I picked. And I thought overall the show was okay, considering that I went into it ice cold. I didn't think there were any big surprises on the show or anything like that, but I'm still confused how like Ring of Honor fits into the bigger picture with AEW and everything. It feels like ever since Tony bought the thing, it's been kind of a mess, but whatever. There's nothing to really report on the pre-show, the 0 hour. Yeah, I'm looking at those matches. It was all like, yeah, it's cool to see Willie Mack, and it was cool to see Jeff Cobb and things like that. But the pre-show, there wasn't a whole lot to report. The main card, Vikingo versus Commander was a solid flip-floppy lucha type of match, and that was fun. The six-man tag title, what a useful title that is, was okay for what it was. I thought Athena versus Yuka Sakazawa... Yuka Sakazaki. Sorry. I thought that match was pretty good. Probably match of the night, honestly. I think Athena is actually one of the better women's champions out there right now, and you don't even know about her because they decided to put her in Ring of Honor instead of using her in AEW, where they could probably use her in this current angle that's going on right now, and I think she'd be doing much better than Toni Storm or Saraya or Ruby Soho. I think Athena would probably fit into that spot much better, or fit in with that group much better, but that's just me. I thought the match they had was really, really good, and I'm kind of digging Athena. Samoa Joe versus Mark Briscoe was a nice, solid, hard-hitting match. I would have liked for Mark Briscoe to win the TV title, but, you know, whatever. Then we got Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Daniel Garcia, which was an okay guest spot for Tanahashi, not much else. I'm not entirely sold on Daniel Garcia, as I've said before. Then we got the Reach for the Sky ladder match for the World Tag Team Championship, the vacant World Tag Team Championship, won by the Lucha Brothers. But Dante Martin suffered a massive injury of Sid in WCW level proportions, where he suffered a compound fracture that basically flipped his leg around. Looked nasty, looked horrible, and it's the type of thing that's like one of those dangers that occurs with matches like this, where they call it high risk for a reason, and every once in a while something like this, like the Joey Mercury incident from a while back, a long time ago, that match where his face exploded. Things like that happen in matches like this. And they can happen in things like this, and they call it high risk for a reason. And that, you know, stuff like this is part of the reason why I wish they wouldn't do these multi-person ladder matches anymore, because the spectacle of them has worn off. They don't seem special anymore. And, you know, the spots themselves make even less sense because as they're trying to like make them more spectacular and try to make them more dynamic and interesting and come up with new things to do, the spots themselves are making less and less sense, and they're becoming more and more dangerous, as you saw at this pay-per-view. And, you know, some people use this as an opportunity to bash AEW and Ring of Honor. It's like, oh, look how dangerous they are and everything like this. I'm like, dude, WWE were the ones that made these matches popular. They're the ones that, like, started all this crap. So it's not like a company thing. It's an industry-wide problem that I wish we could just move away from entirely and just save it for situations where you absolutely need it. Like, even Impact with the Ultimate X match. I remember when the Ultimate X match was like this amazing thing, and it was like this cool creative thing that they came up with. That was one of the things that drew me into TNA initially, because it was like, oh, that's a cool match. I've never seen that before. That looks interesting. And now it's just a throwaway spot fest match that they do on pay-per-views. I'm like, that match is remarkably dangerous, and I don't care because the match has gotten boring and they've oversaturated it, they've overdone it, and I wish they'd just not do those matches because they're dangerous and people don't care anymore. So that's my take on the matter. I wish Dante Martin all the best. I hope he turns out okay. But what I saw there was like a potential career-ending injury, unfortunately. That looked really, really nasty. But next we got the Pure Championship match. Shibata defeating Wheeler Yuta. Wheeler Yuta's another guy. I don't see it in him. I don't know why they keep pushing him. I'm glad he lost the title here because I just don't. I don't see it in him. I'm sorry. I just don't. I think he's remarkably uninteresting. So, cool to see Shibata in there, but the match itself wasn't much. And then we got the main event of Claudio successfully defending the Ring of Honor World title against Eddie Kingston. A nice, kind of fun, hard-hitting match, the type of thing you expect from Eddie at this point. And Claudio could kind of work that style of match. I thought it was fun. I didn't think that Eddie was ever going to win the title. I didn't think that was a possibility, but it was it was an enjoyable match all around. I thought that was all good. So, yeah, Ring of Honor, Supercard of Honor, I thought it was okay. It was nothing great. Am I going to start watching Ring of Honor next week because of this show? Probably not, but you know, it is what it is. I'm more interested to see what AEW delivers with their Tony Khan's newest big announcement, which is becoming a running gag at this point, but we'll see how all that turns out. But I think I'm done ranting. I hope you all are okay, and you're all not losing your minds. I know WrestleMania kind of disappointed some people, but we'll get through this. It'll be okay. It'll be okay. But I'm done here, so if you want to support this channel, be sure to like, subscribe, hit the little bell icon so you get notified when I post new videos, and check the links in the description. I will have links to the fan question and answers that you can submit for my podcast, Weekday Warriors of Wrestling, with myself and Eric Clancy, and also a link to my Twitter where you can follow me and check out my other insane ramblings. But that is all I have for you now. Thanks again, everybody, for watching, and I will see you all later.